So I was messing around on CNN.com yesterday. I didn't really have a purpose for it, but it's always useful to know what the enemy is talking about and what they're saying. And I came across this article: Why Unemployment Claims Are So Low in South Dakota, Utah, and Nebraska. Now, you all know that unemployment, for me, keeping that number as low as possible has always been one of the core things that I focused on. I'm an organizational psychologist, man. I believe that jobs are good. I believe that when people have a job, they have a purpose, they have a sense of focus, they can put their energy into creating something useful that's going to serve their organization, their community, society, whatever that might be. And this was true before all this nonsense with the virus, and it's true now. So employment for me has been one of the topics I've been keeping an eye on and discussing constantly. And so I clicked on this because I was like, oh, let's see what CNN's theory is for why these particular states were able to keep unemployment lower. Let's see what they had to say. The coronavirus pandemic has dealt significant blows to state economies across the United States, especially in places like Kentucky, Hawaii, and Georgia. But in South Dakota, Utah, and Nebraska, unemployment claims have been far more muted. In all three states, initial jobless claims from March 14th through May 2nd were less than 11% of their respective March labor forces. These were the lowest rates in the country. Some of the contributing factors included a diverse mix of industries, low jobless rates before the crisis, and stronger state budgets. Those sound like good generic reasons, don't they? Macroeconomists, we tend to hegemonize the states, says Joseph Santos, professor of economics at South Dakota State University. The reality is that the experience that a state has with a business cycle could be a lot different from one state to the next. And then they go through the three states and they theorize some reasons why these states weren't as hard hit. At South Dakota, they say, possible explanation is the mix of dominant sectors: education and health services, government, trade, transportation, utilities. They have a very diversified economy, apparently, in South Dakota. In Utah, they said, it didn't hurt that the state already had an $800 million war chest for a rainy day to plan for such disasters as this. And in Nebraska, they didn't even have a good reason for it. They were just like, this is just pretty much what we see in Nebraska. They really, I'll link to this article. They really had no good reason for why this was going on in Nebraska. But you know what they didn't mention? In this entire article, they didn't even consider it as a possibility that South Dakota, Utah, and Nebraska were, wait for it, they're three of the states that never closed. They never closed their economy. Oh my God, wouldn't that be a contributing factor, CNN, to why unemployment might be so low? That they didn't. This is even on your own site, dude. I didn't even have to look very far for this. This is also on CNN. 7 governors still haven't issued stay-at-home orders. Here's why. This is from April 13th, so it was a ways back. But let's see what 7 governors did not issue those stay-at-home orders. Let's just see. Let's see. Iowa, Nebraska, ding, ding, ding. North Dakota, South Dakota, ding, ding, ding. Oh, wait for it. Utah, ding, ding, ding. And Wyoming. So 3 of the 7 states that CNN on their business website yesterday said, we just don't know. We just don't know why these states have lower unemployment claims. It's a diversified economy. They had that war chest for a rainy day. Nebraska, we've got no flipping clue what's going on there. They didn't even consider the fact that these states did not close. They did not issue stay-at-home orders during this crisis. What, man? This is Occam's razor at its finest. The simplest explanation tends to be the right one. The simplest explanation in this case is not that South Dakota has the most diversified economy in the world, because it doesn't. I'm sorry, it's South Dakota. I'm sure it's a wonderful, beautiful state, but come on, man. That is not the simplest explanation. The simplest explanation is that the governor put her foot down and didn't close the state. That's why they have lower unemployment. This is not rocket science, people, science, blah, whatever. You know what I mean? Oh, man. And as I was reading this article on Real Clear Politics this morning, this is by Dennis Prager, wonderful article. It really highlights the damage that these lockdowns are doing to the economy, not just in the United States, but across the world. The worldwide lockdown may be the greatest mistake in history. Listen, I'm going to link this in the description below. Go read this article. We're going to read a little bit of it, but go read this article. It is a wonderful analysis. It's one of the best things I've read so far about why this is all crazy. But let's see what Dennis Prager had to say. The idea that the worldwide lockdown of virtually every country other than Sweden may have been an enormous mistake strikes many as so preposterous as to be immoral. Timothy again from the New York Times described Republicans who wish to enable their states as the party of death. And isn't it funny? You know, I was talking to a psychotherapist a couple of weeks ago, and he was telling me that in order for someone to feel that they're the good guy, they're the virtuous ones, they need to paint everyone that disagrees with them as bad. So if I disagree with you on shutting down the economy, on making sure that people have jobs, they have a purpose, that their small businesses are not falling apart and being destroyed, that means that I have to be the bad person if you're the good person. People have this very black and white thinking about it. They're not able to see that these are shades of gray. Folks, seeing shades of gray does not make you a weak person. It makes you a strong person. It makes you a person that is able to recognize nuance and to take multiple different perspectives to look at a situation. This is also known as a flexible growth mindset. When we're talking about a growth mindset as opposed to a fixed mindset, the growth mindset used to be the ideal thing to have because it meant you could look at things from different perspectives, you could play with different ideas, you could bring ideas together. That was all used to be considered a very good thing. And then something happened along the way, and all of a sudden people started seeing it as a virtue to dig their heels in and make everything a black and white issue. Things are rarely black and white issues. There are more issues at stake in the managing of this virus than we have to save people from getting sick and dying from it. People get sick. They die. Every death is a tragedy. I don't want to minimize any of it. But if you're saying that those people, the people that get the virus and die of the virus, even if they had one or two or several other underlying health conditions that were going to lead to their death at some point in the next year anyway, if you say that those people are all that matters, you are leaving a huge blanket of people all over the world that you're saying, oh, your lives and your work and your businesses and your passions are just not as important as these things over here. It's absurd. That's the way it is today on planet Earth, where deceit, cowardice, and immaturity now dominate almost all societies because the elites are deceitful, cowardly, and immature. You go, Dennis Prager. But for those open to reading thoughts that they may differ with, here is the case for why the worldwide lockdown is not only a mistake, but also possibly the worst mistake the world has ever made. And for those intellectually challenged by the English language and or logic, mistake and evil are not synonyms. The lockdown is a mistake. The Holocaust, slavery, communism, fascism, etc. were evils. I love the distinction he makes there. Massive mistakes are made by arrogant fools. Massive evils are committed by evil people. The forcible prevention of Americans from doing anything except what politicians deem essential has led to the worst economy in American history since the Great Depression of the 1930s. It is panic and hysteria, not the coronavirus, that has created this catastrophe. I 100% agree. And the consequences in much of the world will be horrible, more horrible than America. The United Nations Food Program, or WFP, states that by the end of the year, more than 260 million people will face starvation, double last year's figures. According to the WFP director David Beasley on April 21st, we could be looking at famine in about 36 countries. There is also a real danger that more people could potentially die of the impact of COVID-19 than from the virus itself. That would be enough to characterize the worldwide lockdown as a deathly error. But there is much more. If the global GDP declines by 5%, another 147 million people could be plunged into extreme poverty, according to the International Food Policy Research Institute. Foreign Policy magazine reports that, according to the International Monetary Fund, the global economy will shrink by 3% in 2020, making it the biggest turndown since the Great Depression, and the US, the Eurozone, and Japan will contract by 5.9%, 7.5%, and 5.2% respectively. Meanwhile, across South Asia, as of a month ago, tens of millions of people were already struggling to put food on the table. Again, all because of the lockdowns, not the virus. We need to make a distinction here. Listen, people get sick, viruses happen. It is certainly not convenient. But what is going on right now in our world, it does not need to be this way. Not all states are doing this. Not all countries are doing this. Sweden has been thrown around for a model of what to do because they didn't shut down. They just practiced common sense measures. In one particularly incomprehensible act, the government of India, a poor country of 1.3 billion people, locked down its people. As Quartz India reported on April 22nd, coronavirus has only killed around 700 people, a small number compared to the 450,000 TB and 10,000 odd malaria deaths recorded every year. One of the thousands of unpaid garment workers protesting the lockdown in Bangladesh understands the situation better than almost any World Health official in the world. We are starving. If we don't have food in our stomach, what's the use of observing this lockdown? But concern for that Bangladeshi worker among the world's elites seems to be non-existent. The lockdown is possibly even more catastrophic than the virus in its outcome: the collapse of the global food supply systems and widespread human starvation. That was published in the left wing The Nation, which nevertheless enthusiastically supports lockdowns. And Dennis Prager's not the only one talking about this. This was in the Los Angeles Times today. The economic devastation wrought by the pandemic could ultimately kill more people than the virus itself. Born and raised in Brazil's drought-ridden northeast, she moved with her partner to Rio de Janeiro in 2018 in search of work. He was hired as a janitor, she began selling meals on the street, and soon they were bringing in $280 a month, enough to start saving to one day build a house back home. The novel coronavirus pushed the dream out of reach. Lima, who has diabetes and heart problems, putting her at higher risk of dying if she contracts the virus, stopped working once the pandemic took hold in her sprawling slum known as the City of God. And this is obviously in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Now it seems as though if the coronavirus doesn't kill her, hunger may. The United Nations predicts that a global recession will reverse a 3-decade trend of rising living standard and plunge as many as 420 million people into extreme poverty, defined as earning less than $2 a day. The UN predicts the coronavirus could push an additional 130 million people to the brink of starvation by 2020. World Vision and international Christian aid organizations warn that 30 million children are at risk of dying. But does the left care? No, they don't. We'll go back to Dennis Prager's article, but the American left cares as much about the millions of non-Americans reduced to hunger and starvation because of the lockdown as it does about the people of upstate New York who have no incomes, despite the minuscule number of coronavirus deaths there, or about the citizens of Oregon, whose governor has just announced the state will remain locked down until July 6th. And in Los Angeles, they're going till August. As of this writing, a total of 109 people have died of coronavirus in Oregon. An example of how disinterested the left is in the worldwide suffering is made abundantly clear in the front page prayer of a left-wing Christian in the current issue of The Nation. May we who are merely inconvenienced remember those whose lives are at stake. I've been seeing more and more stories of small business owners who dedicated their lives to building these small businesses. Not big name people, just we're happy having a small business in their community, doing good work, being able to do work that they love, inspire people, help people in their communities. They're gone. Small businesses are gone. They're having to close. They can't get the help they need from the government. They have no end in sight. They're having to close these businesses. How many businesses are we willing to lose? How many small businesses? You know, I did a video yesterday complaining about how I couldn't go to the gym, and I totally stand by that video. I absolutely want gyms to open again, and I want people to have the choice to be able to go or not. If you don't feel safe going to the gym, don't go to the gym. But don't get in my way when I just want to go and walk on the damn treadmill and lift some weights and work out some of this goddamn frustration. But you know what? And people were like, Carlin, you're just whining because you want to go to the gym. Why can't you work out in your house? Blah, 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 blah. You know what? It's not about the gym, folks. Not about the gym. Name whatever your small business is. Name whatever industries you really like that make your life better. They're going to go away too. They're absolutely going to go away too. If you think this is just about my favorite thing, your favorite things, and the favorite things of your neighbors and the small businesses that are built in your community are going to go away permanently. Not temporarily, permanently. We've got to stop acting like sheep. This is ridiculous. And it's not just hurting us in the United States for our businesses to go away. I mean, that is the very definition of being merely inconvenienced. On this quote, I agree. You know, that is the definition. Me not being able to go to the gym is the very definition of being merely inconvenienced. Small businesses around me closing, it's tragic, but it is an inconvenience, right? Like, life will go on, we'll rebuild some things, it'll probably be okay, but people are going to starve in the course of this. A lot of people are going to starve, and a lot of people are going to die horrible deaths of despair that are no better than dying of the coronavirus, of which very, very, very few people who actually get the dang thing are even going to die. You know what? Like, here's the thing. I'm not afraid of death. I'm really not. I'm not afraid of death at all. Not one iota. That's not to say I'm inviting it. Keep in mind, like, I'm not anxious to die. I'm not like, oh, like, am I going to die today? I'm not doing that. I'm not purposely trying to get it. I'm taking steps not to get it, all that good stuff. But I'm not afraid of it. What I am afraid of is living a life where other people are controlling what I say, controlling what I can do, controlling where I go, controlling where I can work and what type of work I can do. Those things terrify the living hell out of me. And you know what else terrifies me? Is a left that is so bent on getting their way and on dragging this out as long as they possibly can so that they can win an election and get Donald Trump out of office, because ultimately I believe that's really the only thing they care about. They don't care about anyone that's struggling, anyone that's at risk of starvation. They don't care about any of this stuff. All they care about is getting Trump out of office. These people are insane. It's insanity when you are really so self-centered that your entire focus in life goes towards one person who you won't even listen to, you won't even watch clips of because he triggers you so much. Man, go to goddamn therapy. If that's you, if you care so much about getting Trump out of office that you don't care about the impacts of all of this on everyday Americans, go to goddamn therapy. Work out your shit, because the rest of us have lives to live and we just want to get on with it.